You guys may want to take notes since this isn't a video that you guys will watch. These will be notes that will be helpful to you as we get ready to move into public speaking. We are going to move into public speaking. These are chapters 11 through 17, I believe, in your book, and you should read them, starting with probably whichever one is about informative speaking. That's what we're going to delve into, informative speaking. And I will likely put up a video anyway that may help you guys with some of this too. But here we go. We're going to start from the very beginning. First of all, there are different kinds of public speaking or communication genres, if you will. And we've talked about these before. Intrapersonal has to do with the communication you have in your inside with yourself. Interpersonal is the one-on-one, the dyad kind of communication that we have. Small group is anywhere from 3 to about 20 people. It is very task oriented and people get together to work on doing something. Sometimes it's social, sometimes it's business, but you're trying to accomplish something. Public speaking then is another one, and it is usually a group of about up to 20 people or so. It could be more, I suppose. And the focus is a targeted message. It is a message that is targeted toward a certain group of people. So when we think about this class, for instance, this class could be considered a public speaking genre, if you will, because the message is targeted specifically to COM 100. Make sense so far? There is mass communication. And that, of course, is communication that is available to and reaches everyone. It could be television, news, radio, music, art. There are so many different ways that we communicate in mass form, social media these days, that all of that counts. And sometimes the message is targeted toward a certain group, but the message is still out there and available to everyone. For instance, the Super Bowl, and they have the commercials. Most people enjoy the Budweiser commercials. I don't drink alcohol, so they're not going to sell me alcohol, but I like watching the commercials. It's all out there for me to see. You get an opportunity to partake in it, but the message or whomever it's for may or may not be for me. Okay. And of course, well, that's just the big genre. That's the whole kind of umbrella, and the categories kind of underneath the umbrella, if you will. Any questions about those?
Really quick, I think you said it at the beginning. You said chapters 11 through 17, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? All of those chapters deal with public speaking. Just take a look at them. All of them do. We're not going to deal with persuasive speaking, so you can probably overlook that one, but you'll need the other ones. All right, then, let's talk about how to choose a topic. How do you choose a topic? So many people will say, I don't know what to talk about. What am I going to talk about? The first thing I'm going to tell you is talk about what you know. Talk about what you know. It makes it so much easier when you do that. You'll feel less anxious. You'll feel more confident because, again, you're talking about something that you already have knowledge of. You may want to ask people what's important to them. Just because something is important and interesting to me doesn't mean that it will be that way to other people. And you may want to ask, I'm thinking about talking about this. What do you think about this topic? What do you know about this? What comes to your mind? Another is the internet. Of course, whatever's out there trending, whatever's available to people, those might be interesting topics as well. Feel free to brainstorm. Just write down topics or things that are interesting to you that come to your mind. In my public speaking classes, that's one of the assignments that they have to do. And that is, I give them 10 different categories and they write down 10 words for each category. That gives you something that can prompt you that you might be interested in talking about. So of course you can do the same thing. And reading, of course, gives you different ideas about things that may be important. Hold on a moment here, please. Oh. All right. Any questions about anything that I just shared? What I will, let me see, am I going to do that way? I don't know. Okay. These lecture notes may likely be part of the quizzes for this section too. So you'll want to make sure that you're taking notes and understand here, not just things that are in the book. Okay. So then those are ways or things that you can consider when you're choosing a topic that are going to be kind of important. The audience analysis is something that you also need to take into consideration. Who am I speaking to? Here it's a little easier because we're at South Mountain Community College, and so you're in a classroom of students. That makes it easier on one hand because at least you have that in common. But there are other things that you need to consider when you are doing a public speaking presentation. And also let me say that any opportunity you get to speak to somebody is really a public speaking opportunity. So it's not just, you don't have to have a crowd of people. Whenever you're speaking, it's about organizing your thoughts, putting things together, and to get your message across. So then, audience analysis, you have to think of certain contexts. Many of these you have heard already, you've heard throughout the course, and they show up here again. I've said to you all that you're going to find these same contexts throughout, and here we go. Age is a context. If you're talking to young kids versus elderly people or just middle-aged people, it matters how you approach it. The language that you would use is going to vary. Gender matters. Is it a group of all men? Is it a group of all women? Is it both? Again, how you approach that might be different. I spoke to a group called WIN, Women's Interest Network, which is part of American Express, and it's one of their groups over there. And Women's Interest Network, you think women. And I was so grateful that I asked the gal that hired me, is this group all women? And she said, no, there were men. I was like, oopsie. I was so glad I asked, because then I could go back and change some of what I was going to say, some of my PowerPoint slides to include men's point of view and things that were going to make them feel more included too. So it wasn't just about women. Had I not asked, I would have had to do some adjusting, and it wouldn't have been in my PowerPoints, but it would have been in my presentation, my verbal presentation to them. So we have age, we have gender. Culture is something else. You have to understand the culture of people, the value set of people. What are their belief systems? And if you understand where people are coming from, you can find a way to connect with people. And you want to be able to connect. You absolutely want to be able to connect with people. So then they'll find you credible. They will want to listen to you. All of that is important. Geography, where people live, where they work, where they play, all of that matters too. If I'm talking to a group of people in South Mountain that live in South Mountain, I may be able to bring in information about the area that, so that they understand. But if I live in a completely different area and I'm going to talk to them about things that affect them over in South Mountain and I don't know anything about it, that's going to put me at a disadvantage. And the culture of an area is different. Okay, we hear it all the time when you talk about Chicago, South Side, West Side, whatever those things are, that there are certain things that are associated with them. And you have to understand that about a place when you're getting ready to talk to people. Religion matters. If I want to talk to people about my belief in terms of spirituality, if nobody else believes like me, then oh my. It's not this class. I have another class where a girl is a Wiccan. Okay. And we don't want to knock her belief system, her religion, right? She has as much right as anybody else to believe what they want and to practice whatever they want. And she's a Wiccan. Okay. People may be Buddhist or Catholic or Mormon or atheists or agnostic. Everybody's not Christian. Okay. And you have to keep those things in mind when you are talking to people and bringing up things that have to do with religion or spirituality, because you don't want to turn people off. You want them to hear what you have to say. All right. And right now I'm talking about informative speaking. But let me just add a little quick thing here and say, if I were trying to persuade people, which means influence them to see things my way, to act, think, believe, do something that I would want, then I do need to make sure that they are on my side, that they see things my way, and that I can relate to people. That's important. Let me give you a quick definition then, if you will, of informative speaking. Informative speaking, and I'll tell you about, as a matter of fact, the 4 or 5 most common speeches. Let me give those to you quickly here. Informative speaking. This is where you share and enhance knowledge. You share and enhance knowledge. And notice I am not using the word to define the word. You guys want to make sure that you don't do that. We've talked about that before. And it is an opportunity. My agenda is only to give and share the information. I'm just sharing and enhancing knowledge. That's what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that what I'm sharing is necessarily new. It may be something that people already know about, and that's okay. I may be sharing something in a different way or enhancing their knowledge. Maybe they know something about a topic, but I'm giving them more information, part B or C, or just adding on, enhancing it. People may get aha moments from it, if you will. But again, the agenda is merely to share the information, to share and enhance knowledge. Don't use the word information when you're defining it. Persuasive speaking is another very popular thing. We do it all the time. It means to influence. We want to influence our audience to see things, to believe things, and to behave and do what we would like for them to believe and do. The election is coming up, and people have been out there, pounding the pavement for their prospective candidates. And the end goal is to get people to vote. That is what they want you to do. They want you to vote. There is a call to action with persuasive speaking, a call to action. What do you want people to do? What is the end goal? It's not the solution of it, but it's what will make what I want to have happen. Well, I want so-and-so to win the presidency. I have to go vote for him. Okay, that's what will make it happen, hopefully. Speeches to entertain are another. Speeches to entertain. These are not one-liners. I mean, certainly you can have roasts, when you're roasting someone, but many times it could be a topic that is a little controversial, uncomfortable maybe, boring maybe, and you find a way to add some levity, to make people laugh, to make people feel more at ease about whatever it is you're talking about. These are speeches to entertain. Again, you could have a roast for somebody, and of course we know that we're making fun of people and different actions or situations or experiences. And another is speeches of tribute. Tribute. These are where we give out an award to somebody, or we are honoring someone for something that they have done. Okay. That's a speech of tribute. There's a criteria that's attached to it. If they did 1, 2, 3, 4, then they can win this prize, or this is how they got to be in this group of people that you're going to honor. Are there any questions about anything so far? We good? Okay, I'm going to move forward. So then, all of that considered, let me just ask you, you are going to have to choose a topic. I will be the final voice in it to determine whether or not it will be approved. My hope is that you'll get to speak about the topic that you want, but I just need to make sure that it is not persuasive or something else. That's the big thing. I want to make sure that it is definitely informative and not a persuasive kind of speech. What things now, if I were to ask you, what kind of things interest you or do you like? What comes to your mind? Just a couple people, if you would share, that would be great.
Music theory?
Okay, music theory. Did we do the topic? No, we didn't do the topic. We haven't done anything with public speaking here yet, have we? Okay, good. Music theory, that's one. All right, somebody else? Tamaya, what interests you?
Nothing really comes to mind for me.
What do you like to do?
I know I like to draw and paint.
Okay. Okay. If you'd like to draw and paint, that may be something that you want to talk to us about. Okay. And there's so many aspects of it, so that's something to consider. Thank you. Ty, how about you?
Sorry. I like to listen to music a lot, so it would have to be music as well.
Something with music? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Justin, how about you?
What?
You didn't hear the question?
No, I have this fan thing on.
That's okay. Casey, how about you?
Like restoring old furniture or recycling old furniture.
Okay, good. Thank you. Now, I asked those questions. What is interesting to you? What do you like to do? Now, something that you have to make sure that you ask yourself and are very honest with yourself after you ask yourself is, would this be interesting to other people? You know, and why would it be interesting to other people? It's called the WIFM, WIFM, the WIFM. What's in it for me? That's what the audience wants to know. What's in it for me? It's great that you like music, but why should I care? Right? You have to help me understand that. And if she's going to talk about music theory or music therapy, she's going to say, well, music therapy can help people with anxiety. So if you're stressed about something, and certainly in COVID-19, many people are stressed, music therapy is a way to calm you. Music therapy is a way to understand your emotions. She could tell us about a lot of things. Oh, wow, that could be interesting. All right. So you have to think about what might be interesting to other people. And if you can't, if the topic that you're looking at and you can't do that, then you need to rethink it a bit, okay? Let me also say that when we consider an informative speech, there is more than one kind of informative speech. There's one called demonstrative, demonstrate, if you will, which is a how-to speech. How to change a tire, how to make guacamole, how to, I don't know, use a golf putt, whatever the thing is called, a little putter or something if you wanted to, how to date during COVID-19, fun places, those are how-tos. And so then when you're considering different topics, think of things that are fun, think of things that are interesting, if you will. Maybe you want to talk about, great places to hike in Arizona or in Phoenix. You can tell us about some of the trails that are out here. Maybe you want to talk to us about how to exercise at home during a pandemic. So for people that still don't want to go to the gym, what can I use at home? What can I do at home to make sure that I'm still getting exercise? Maybe that could be of interest to people. You know, so just you think about a lot of different things when it comes to your interests, when it comes to what you know how to do. Maybe it's your hobbies that you're going to talk about as well. So consider those things. And then again, make sure you're asking the question, is this going to be interesting to other people? And you may want to ask them because they may be like, it's all right. And it doesn't mean that everything has to be fabulous, but just because you like video games doesn't mean I want to hear about them. I'm not a video game player. What are you going to tell me about them? Maybe, I mean, and there may be something that you could find that would be interesting. You know, I used to tell guys years ago that if you're going to talk, and this is very stereotypical because a lot of women know how to change a tire. How many of you ladies here know how to change a tire? I've got one, I've got two. I call AAA. I'm not touching anything, right? I'm a AAA girl. But if you wanted to talk to us about how to change a tire, and now I'm making an assumption, many guys, we assume that a guy knows how to change a tire. Not all guys know how to change a tire. Many of them do. And so then if a lot of guys, how many of you guys know how to change a tire? Show of hands. Okay, see, they're raising their hands. So then why would they care about a speech about how to change a tire? They already know. So it's like, you know, I don't want to even hear this, but what's next? Boring. But if somehow or another in the speech, you can let them know, even though you know how to change a tire, you could be, you know, the knight in shining armor that comes to save the damsel in distress. Maybe it's a great way to meet chicks. You know, they'd be like, oh, okay. That's a different kind of approach to it that may make them interested in listening now to the speech. You have to find a way to engage people. Does this make sense? Questions so far? Let me talk about the first assignment you all are going to have to do to get ready for this, and it relates to choosing your topic. Relates to choosing your topic. And it is about your speech objectives. Speech objectives. These show up at the very beginning of your outline. You're going to need an outline. They show up at the very beginning of your outline. Before I tell you that, let me tell you something else. Let me tell you what the goal of public speaking is. The goal, G-O-A-L. I will use it as an acronym. Goal. It's not mine. It comes from Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an international speaking group for people who want to learn how to public speak. G stands for get to the point. You don't want to belabor things. You want to have a great introduction, get people interested so that they want to listen and want to hear. G is get to the point. O, organize and outline. So two things, organize and outline. You put your thoughts in some kind of order, you write them all down, and then you organize them in an outline. Everybody in here, I imagine, has done a research paper at some point for college. Anybody in here not done a research paper? Okay, good, then you know, and you've had English courses, so you know about outlining. The outline that I share with you may be a little different, but basically it'll be the same kind of thing where you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, introduction, body, conclusion. A is attend. You want to attend or give your attention to each of your main points. Attend. Give your attention to, attend to each of the main points. And L is leave them with a message. By the time they're done, by the time you're done, people should at least know your main points. They should at least know your main points. For all intents and purposes, we will have 3 main points for this speech. Most often, people aren't going to have more than that. If you think about being at church, they may have, you know, point A, B, and C. or 1, 2, and 3. It's rhythmic to the ear. People can, it's easy to remember. You don't want to have so much that people get lost in what's going on. So you will have 3 main points. That's something you guys will want to know. Excuse me. So as we get ready for putting the speech together, you need objectives, and objectives are something you will look at. The audience doesn't see your objectives. It helps you ready yourself to know what needs to be done. Okay? There are 3 parts to the objectives. General purpose, I'll go through each of them. General purpose, and think of the words, we're going to go from general to, which is abstract, to very concrete. So general purpose, the definition for that is the broad, basic agenda of the speech. It is a broad, basic agenda of the speech. So my broadly speaking, when I think of general, that means it's basic, it's broad. It's going to be 2 words that you guys will write down for your general purpose, and they will be to inform. That's your general purpose. Generally speaking, I want to inform my audience. If this were persuasion, it would be to persuade. Okay, to entertain, to give tribute. But we are doing an informative speech. It is 2 words and 2 words only, to inform. If you have more than that, it's going to be incorrect. Everybody understand what I've said so far? Or do you have questions? Are we good? Okay, so we have our general purpose. Next is specific purpose. Specific purpose. The definition of the specific purpose is the goal of the speech. The specific purpose is the goal of the speech, meaning what do you want the audience to leave with? What is your end point? And it says specific, you want to get as clear as possible when you're doing this. And I'll give you some examples in just a moment. What you need to know though is it must start with to inform the audience. That has to be there, to inform the audience. If it were persuasive, to persuade the audience. That has to be there. We put that there so that you're reminded when you look at it that this is not about you. This is about the audience. To inform the audience, not me, the audience. It's about them. Okay, it keeps the WIFM in mind, if you will. To inform the audience. I'll give you an example of this whole thing in a moment. Central idea is much like a thesis statement. It is 1 sentence, it is narrowed, it is focused, and it includes your 3 main points. 1 sentence that is narrowed, focused, with 3 main points. That's for what we will use this for. Something that I really want you to keep in mind, write it however you need to write it, is use as few words as possible. When you look at this, you want to see your main points to make it easy. Otherwise, after you do your objectives, when you get ready to research it, you may say, oh my gosh, you may look at it and think, wow, I could talk about this, I could talk about the other, and before you know it, you're overwhelmed. Or it's too broad and you're just thinking that it's way too much. If you keep it very focused, when you start doing your research, you can find what you need to find. Or when you look at it, you can say, you know what, there's not enough information about this. Maybe I need to change one of these main points. So it will help you. It will help you stay from in the realm of overwhelm. Okay? So your central idea, 1 sentence, narrowed, focused, direct to the point, is with as few words as possible. So let's take a topic. I'll use self-esteem. Self-esteem will be the topic. My general purpose then is what? Someone.
To inform.
Thank you, ma'am. To inform. To inform, period. My specific purpose then I could say a couple of things. To inform the audience about self-esteem. If I wanted to be more specific, I could say to inform the audience about the stages of self-esteem. If I were going to talk to people about how to build self-esteem or to grow it, maybe that's what it would be, to inform the audience how to enhance their self-esteem. Be as specific as possible. And again, it is the goal, what I want to have done in this speech. So to inform the audience about the stages of self-esteem. So when you're done, when I'm done speaking about this, you should understand the stages of self-esteem. I'm making some of this up as I go along. Central idea. Self-esteem can be built, busted, and rebuilt. Those are three different stages: the building of it, the busting of it, and the rebuilding of it. Do you see how simple that sentence is? Direct to the point, not a whole lot of fluff. When you think about self-esteem, you should think about how self-esteem is built and then how people can tear it down. No, save all of that for the rest of the speech. This central idea needs to be very clean. Let me give you a different example. Friendship. Okay. So general purpose would be to inform. Specific purpose. I'll just start with to inform the audience about friendship. That's not as specific as I would like, but I'm thinking aloud as I'm doing this. My central idea could be true friendship includes the qualities of communication, loyalty, and mutual interests. Okay. Something that you should consider when you are writing yours is the order of something, the order. What comes first? Does interest come before the rest? I would probably so. So I would probably change that to say, 3 qualities of true friendship include mutual interests, communication, and loyalty. That order seems to work for me. Does this make sense? The assignment that you guys are going to have is called informative topic. I think it's called informative topic. And you will need to consider, brainstorm, do whatever you need to do, 4 different topics that you would like to speak about. Hopefully put them in the order that you would like to speak, so that when we go through them, you know, you're giving us information about the ones that you would like to speak about first. And so you will need to do a general purpose, a specific purpose, and a central idea for each of them. Make sense? Okay. So if Ty wanted to talk about painting. I don't know anything about painting. She could say, I don't know, you would know. If she were going to talk to us about learning to paint. No, you know, she could talk about painting for beginners. Maybe that's what she's going to talk about. Or painting for beginners. I'll just start with that. So my general purpose could be to inform. My specific purpose could be to inform the audience about learning to paint for beginners. My central idea could be, and I'm truly making this up, painting for beginners could include a sip and paint, paint by numbers, or using an Etch-a-Sketch. Do they still even make Etch-a-Sketches? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, good. I just, you know, I don't know if any of that's true. Ty's over there probably saying, oh my gosh, no, lady, that's not it at all. Shut up. And so, and I would probably switch those around to Etch-a-Sketch because we had those as kids or something. Learning to paint for beginners could start with an Etch-a-Sketch, painting by numbers, or a sip and paint. Those are three different areas that we could talk about. Does this make sense? Questions about this? Okay. Let me say, and make a little note somewhere about this, you'll see this again as well. For informative speaking, there are several different organization patterns that you can use for your outline or for the speech. Different organization patterns. The two most common are chronological and topical. Chronological and topical. Chronological, of course, is generally used with the how-to speeches because it means that you're putting things in order. This is how-to. First you do this, next you do the other, third you do this. Topical, on the other hand, means that you have a topic with categories underneath it. Or if you want to say it, categories with a topic underneath them. Self-esteem could be the topic or the category, whichever word you want to use. And underneath it, I would talk about how to build self-esteem, how to bust self-esteem. Uh-oh. Am I locked up? Oh no.
You froze.
Move. Who cares? Good. Oh, they're just closing up some stuff. What we got going on here? All right. Oh, there I am. Oh. Okay. I don't know what that was. So topical, they would be those little categories underneath it. Does that make sense? If I were going to paint or talk about how to paint for beginners, the three different topics underneath the category of painting for beginners would be paint by number, the Etch-a-Sketch, paint by number, and sip and paint. So you guys are clear on how to do that. Is that correct? No questions?
It's kind of like a 3-bracketed thesis.
There you go.
Right.
Nicely said. If that works, sure. If that's the easy way to understand it, that's great. 3-bracketed thesis is fine. That will be the first assignment that you guys will have to do. And then next week we will choose those topics. We will choose those topics. And you know what? I may choose the topics after I take a look at them, and then you guys will know ahead of time so that you could get started with some more parts to this. That may be what ends up happening. The outline for this, I think I may want to share. All right, so we're going to talk about an outline, an informative outline. Persuasion is different. A persuasive outline is written differently. So you have your objectives, and now you go to your introduction. Now you go to the introduction. And when we think about this, it's like any paper. You have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Introduction, body, conclusion. We're going to talk about the introduction, but when is the best time to write your introduction?
At the beginning.
When you're writing a paper or something, when do you write your introduction?
At the beginning.
At the end.
She writes hers at the beginning and somebody else writes theirs at the end. Whatever works for you, do. I have found that when many people are struggling with writing the beginning of a paper, it's because they're trying to write the introduction. When you have your body and the crux of information you want to talk about, something will generally emerge that you want to talk about in the introduction. Try it sometime and see if you write your introduction last, if that changes things for you. You need the meat of what you're going to talk about, obviously. Okay? All right, here we go. Introduction. 4 different parts to it. A is attention grabber. Attention grabber. This is where you have about 7 seconds max to engage the audience. You want them to want to listen to you. And so you're utilizing, you know, your speaking prowess to get people interested in listening to what you have to say. There are several ways that you can do this, and let me tell you of a few. One is you might start with a quote. If you do, no matter what you do in your speech, it all builds upon something else. You can't just say a random quote. The quote has to be part of the speech and what you're talking about, part of the topic. It has to build upon it. After you tell us what the quote is, tell us who said it, why it's important to this topic. You have to move forward into it. You can say a quote. I'll give you examples of these in a moment. Another is you might want to ask a question. If you do, make sure it's a rhetorical question. What's a rhetorical question?
A question that has no answer.
Good. A question that you're really not expecting people to necessarily answer. You do not want to relinquish your microphone. If you start asking people questions, and I have seen it happen, people will start answering. And then they've started a whole new conversation. And before you know it, your time is up. The time that you had to spend with them and to share with them is over. They've taken up your time. Boom. If, on the other hand, you say things like, by a show of hands, how many of you know how to paint? They can raise their hand. Okay? By a show of hands, how many of you ever did something, 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 whatever it is? Then you can get people kind of engaged that way. Again, if you ask a question, tell us why you asked. Don't just ask a question. There's a couple things. If you ask a question, wait for people to answer, either by nodding or, you know, raising their hand, whatever you ask them to do. Give them that moment so that they do that. Okay? Then explain why you asked that. I asked this question because, boom. Make sense? Okay. All right. Then you might want to use a statistic. You might want to use a statistic. If you do, round it up or down, unless for some reason we need to know the very minutest of numbers. but it's distracting to a lot of people when you go into the 96.7239. What? Just approximately 97%, or, give us, round it up, and then tell us why this is important, why you're sharing this statistic with us. Why do we need to know this? So your A is more than one sentence. It includes everything that I just got done talking about, not each of those things, one of them, and then you explain it. Okay? You might tell a joke. Be careful. Not everything is funny to everybody. You don't want to offend people. Okay? But it can lighten the load. It can bring levity to a situation. Especially, again, when topics are taboo, when topics are uncomfortable. If you're going to talk about racism, people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. This can be a tough or boring, or whatever the word is that you have in mind for it. And maybe if you tell a little joke to let people know this is going to be a fun conversation, going to talk about some things that are a little tough, but we're going to get through them. One little joke that comes to mind is, I could say, okay, black guy and white guy ride the bus to work together every day. Black guy says Jesus is black. White guy says no, he's white. Black guy's like, he's got woolly hair. His feet are bronze. That's black. White guy says no. They decide to go get hit by a bus one day, go up to the pearly gates because they want to find out if Jesus is black or white. They get to the pearly gates, ask where Jesus is. St. Peter says, he's over there with his back to you. And one of the guys calls out, hey, Jesus. Jesus turns around and says, buenos dias. Right? And so they find he's not black, he's not white. We don't know what he is. And people are like, oh man, and then they can laugh. So then it stops some of the push and pull that may be there. And then you start to think, okay, let's take a look at this. Let's be more open-minded, more open-hearted as we take a look at this. Okay. Sometimes the jokes you tell won't be fall out laughing, knee slapping kind of things, but they just may be things that make you say, okay, I get it. Here we go. All right. Again, be careful. You don't want to offend people. That is not the aim. So we have jokes, statistics. Oh, you might tell a story. A small, short narrative, nothing real long. But you may want to tell a story. It does not have to be true, but if it isn't true, if it's something that you've manufactured for this, please don't try to pass it off as true. That's plagiarism. If it's not your story, if it's somebody else's. But sometimes a story may be good. I'm going to interject this now, and I hope to remember to say it to you guys later, but when you are writing your speech, several things. One is it is written in full sentences. It is written in full sentences. That's one. Full sentences. It is your blueprint. Your outline is your blueprint. You'll want to remember that too. It has everything in it. All you're going to do. So you're going to write it out in full sentences. That's important to understand. And I was going to tell you something else. Oh, thank you, Lord. When you start your speech in your introduction, start with whatever it is you're going to say. Your attention grabber needs to start to say. Not, I want to start out by telling you a quote. Let me start out by telling you a story. Say the quote. Tell the story. Ask the question. Question first, then just ask it. Okay? You'll want to do that. All right. Any questions about A? Let's go to B. B is benefit. Benefit. Some people use the word significance. It is the benefit to the audience. What will the audience gain from listening to this speech? What will they gain? What will they get if they listen to this speech? Here's where you have to make a connection with the audience. Somehow or another, so that they understand, oh, okay, this is what I will get from this speech if I listen. What will I learn? What will I gain? if I listen to the speech? And be specific with them. It's the with them. What's in it for me? C is credibility. C is credibility. Please make an asterisk or something here so that you get this right as well. It is, write down the word, it is my credibility. It is my, underline my credibility. This is where you help the audience understand why they should be listening to you. And whatever it is, if you have taken classes, if you have read books, if you've watched videos, if you have experienced something, if it is your major, whatever it is, this is where you tell us what it is. And we can say, oh, they must know what they're talking about. They've experienced this. They're taking classes for this. All right, this is where you explain all of that to us. And it's not bragging, it's giving us information so that we're clear that you have done your due diligence and we should trust what you say. D is preview. Preview. This is where you tell the audience what you're going to tell them. This is where you give them a glimpse into what is going to come. It helps you stay accountable, and it helps the audience know, it gets them ready for this, psychological journey of where you're going to take us. Basically, it is a restatement of your central idea. Here, however, you can embellish it a little more so that it's easier for people to understand, and you're getting them more excited and ready to listen to what you want to talk about. I'm going to give you an example in a moment, but I need to know, do you have any questions about A, B, C, or D? Okay, let me give you an example. We'll use self-esteem. Okay. Oh, okay, all right, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your permission." This quote by our First Lady was said decades ago, but it still holds true today. You and I are in complete control of our self-esteem, hence the word self. How many of you have ever been influenced by or felt less than because of something that someone said? Maybe at school, or you saw something on television, you read something. How many of you? Anybody? None of you? Oh, I'm by myself in that regard. Oh, I see a few hands. Okay, if you haven't, just keep living. But if we understand the mechanics of, if we understand the different stages of self-esteem, then we can learn to be in better control of that. I have studied self-esteem over the years and have enjoyed it. I have a degree in psychology, also a degree in counseling, and in my communication degrees, I've also learned a lot about what makes people tick. Self-esteem is part of it. I take classes, I've read books, I've watched videos, and certainly I have experienced it again myself. I understand the dynamics of self-esteem. So today, I want to share with you some information about self-esteem, 3 stages, if you will: how self-esteem is built, how our self-esteem can be busted, and then how we can rebuild it. That's my ABCD. Make sense? Probably could be better if I had more time to think about it, but it works. Now, any questions about that? All right, so you hear each of those parts, my A, and you hear the B, the benefit for the person, and the C. Okay. The next is transition. Transition. Transition means change. Let me give you the definition that you will need to know. A transition is a phrase or sentence. Notice I didn't say word. It is a phrase or sentence that moves you smoothly from one part of your speech to the next. A phrase or sentence that moves you smoothly from one part of your speech to the next. That's a transition. There are different kinds of transitions for different kinds of speeches. For chronological speeches, of course, you know, it's that orderly kind of thing. Topical speeches, it could be different. There's more information about these in your book. Your book may call them signposts. You can look up the word transitions, you know, for speeches online and find out information too. For some people just use very straight transitions. Other times you can add a little levity or make people laugh in them, or, you know, bring up a little something in there that might be interesting to people. So then, I'll give you an example. All right, after I just told you that we're going to talk about self-esteem, how it's built, busted, and rebuilt, my transition could be, let's first take a look at where self-esteem first starts in our life. That could be a transition. Make sense? All right. I could say, I don't know. Like, I don't know, that's silly. I won't say that one. I could make it even simpler and say, let's first take a look at how self-esteem is built. There's simple too. And that whole little statement that I just made is the transition. Make sense? Okay. Now we move to the body. The body. You have 3 main points, so you're going to have an A, B, and C for each main point. And then we're going to have a 1 and 2 underneath them. What will those represent? After I make a main point, what do I need to do?
Explain it.
Explain it. What else do I need to do? It's not a trick question. Support it. I have to give evidence. I can't just make an assertion and have people necessarily believe it. Why did I say what I say? Where did I get the information from? I have to give sources. I have to support it. Okay? All right, you guys will need sources for this speech as it comes up. Once the assignment is up, you'll see all of the criteria and all of that. Okay. So you make your first statement, your first sentence in your in the body. I said that self-esteem can be built, busted, and rebuilt. It should, my first sentence in my first main point should not say built, and that's it. That's not a sentence. Okay, you need to have a complete sentence. These are complete sentences. It could say, self-esteem is first built in your family surroundings up until about the age of 6 years old. That could be my first, that's when it's built. 0 to about age 5 or 6. Make sense? That whole little sentence. Now my 1 and 2 underneath it, I have to support that somehow. According to an article that was published, or according to a study that was done by the University of Michigan, Professor John Dean, a psychologist, states, we learn how to like ourselves and love ourselves first with our families at a very young age. I made that up, but it's true. Okay? Do you see how I gave you where it was done, who did it, and what they said? You need to quote the person. And you need to share this information in the speech. So you're writing all this stuff in your outline, and you're going to end up sharing this in your speech. When you're finished with that one, you should do an in-text citation. So what would my in-text citation be?
It'll be like when you put like where, you know, the parentheses in like the book, like page number or something you got it from.
Okay.
Or a website or something.
Okay. That's more of my bibliography, my works cited. For my
No, I'm talking about
in-text.
like say like if we were like, say if I like I wrote that sentence, I would put like that, like where it came from in parentheses, right? That's not
So
an
then where did
in-text.
it come from? So you just heard what I said. Where did it come from?
Dr. John Dean,
Good, very
psychologist.
good, very good. So then you put Dean, just the last name,
Oh
Dean.
yeah, okay, see that. That's what, I know it was something like that, but yeah, all right.
Dean, and then you would put the year, comma, and then the year that this was done. So let's just say 2017. Dean, comma, 2017. This will also help you remember to put this in your works cited. All right, that makes sense, you all? And then maybe my next point could be a story about self-esteem. I could tell you as a young child when my parents would, sign me up for talent shows, my brother would be in the back betting on me, betting money that his little sister would win. That's how much he loved me. And it really built my self-esteem. I could tell you a story like that. I could tell you that story first and then give you the other source that I had there too. So you can decide on the order. Just what I say just makes sense. Anybody confused about it? Good. Then next would be a transition. You're transitioning from point A to point B. We've taken a look at how self-esteem is built. Oh, but there are times when people can trample all over you. Let's take a look at how it's busted. That could be my transition. Now my B, my full line could be self-esteem can be damaged through comments from our peers, things in the media. I wouldn't want to use the word things, but from the media, or harmful words that are said from others. I could have that whole statement, and now I can back all of those up. There's tons of research and tons of stories, the stuff that Maury is made out of, or Jerry Springer or whatever. And then I would do the same thing again for my C, transition, and then do it again. We clear? Now we go down to the bottom, which is conclusion. There are two parts to your conclusion. Number one is recap or summary, and number two is clincher. So number one is summary. This is where you recap. This is where you tell us what you told us. If nothing else, people should remember your main points. By the time you are done with your speech, they're going to hear them 3 times. In the introduction, where you tell us that what you're going to tell us today we're going to talk about or whatever. And then your 3 main points, they're going to hear it there. And then in the conclusion, you're going to say, today we talked about self-esteem, how it's built, busted, and how it's rebuilt. They've heard it 3 times. If nothing else, they should remember your main points. That's why they need to be clear. All right. And then my number 2 is called the clincher. This is where you leave them with a message. For me, I started with a quote. I might end with a quote. So today we've talked about self-esteem, how it's built, how it's busted, and how it can be rebuilt. I encourage you all to remember the quote from Eleanor Roosevelt that says, "No one can make you feel inferior without your permission." Thank you. And then I'm out. That's a nice kind of wrap up, if you will. Yes? If I wanted to modernize it somewhat, again, we talked about the audience and who you're speaking to, from speaking to a younger audience, instead of Eleanor Roosevelt's quote. How many of you, by the way, had heard that quote? Okay, I've got one. How many of you ever heard Cat Williams, the comedian, say, self-esteem, it is esteem of yourself? How many of you have ever heard him say that? Okay, I've got a couple, right? So I could bring it up more 2018-ish, 20-ish, if you will, to use somebody like that. That's why he said, you're responsible for your self-esteem, not me. That's why it's called self. I didn't hurt your self-esteem itself. I could go in that way to, to make it funny, but also to let people know you're responsible for it. He hurt my self-esteem. No, you allowed what he or she said to trouble you, to influence you. All right. After you finish your speech, you have to do a separate page, a bibliography, or works cited. This is where you put down all of your sources. And you need to use MLA format or APA. You may use either, but it should not just be www. It should be an actual citation. Questions? Good. Pardon? We're good?
Yep.
All right, well then that's what you guys are going to do for this coming week, is to take a look at your topics. And I'll likely have you do this assignment early on and choose the topic so that you'll know what it is, so that you can start straight away on the outline, just on your draft outline to get started, and we'll end up going over that. Which means that when you do the assignment, do all of you know how to look at comments in your assignments near the grade portion of it? Good, because that's where I will tell you which topic that I will choose for you to do. We will go over those topics next week, and to make sure that you understand how to do it, and on and on and on. Questions about any of that? All right, let's take a break here. Let's come back at 7:25. Okay, I will see you all. Have any of you here ever taken public speaking?
No.
Okay. Casey, did I see you shake your head? Yes. Did you take a course at the college?
Yes, I did last semester.
Oh, okay, good. So then you're familiar with what I'm telling you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything that is different for you than what I shared? Did you remember?
Not real. It's all, pretty similar. It went more, in depth because it was a whole semester, but it was really helpful to me.
Good, good. So the introduction and all the rest, you already knew this kind of stuff. So that's wonderful. I'm excited for you. I want to go over just a piece of an outline so that you will get an idea of what it looks like. This is, I'm going to share some things that work with it and a couple of things that need to be changed a little bit. So obviously you're going to do your heading. You will do, let me make this a little bigger. Whoops, too big. All right, you're going to do your heading, your name, the title of the outline or the assignment, of course, the due date, that kind of thing. Here you see general purpose. Please notice how these are tabbed over. Goes general purpose, then you tab. Specific purpose, tab. Central ID, you tab over. So general purpose, to inform. Clear and to the point. Specific purpose, to inform the audience how to study. This is a how to, a demonstrative informative speech. Central Idea says good study skills require quiet, notes, and discipline. So we see that the three main points here are talking about quiet, notes, and discipline. If this sentence were longer and went to two lines, you would not type under Central Idea. You would tab over and type under good. That makes sense, you all? Hope so. That's for your objectives. Now we go to the introduction. They start with a question. How many of you crammed to study for an exam during finals? All right, now based on what I talked to you all about earlier this evening, what needs to be done to this attention grabber?
Show of hands, how many of you?
Thank you. A show of hands is first, right? Because otherwise people are going to start answering. What else needs to be done to it? Anybody? You need to explain, pardon?
Grab their attention a little bit more, explain your process on that.
Explain why you say what you say. Absolutely. Explain why you said what you said. Because you just go from how many of you been cramming into something else? No, we need to talk more about it. So by a show of hands, how many of you here have ever had to cram to study for during final exam week? Right? Absolutely. I know what that's like. I've been there. Or we know that cramming can be a hard time for people because it's hard to remember. I mean, you can go on and explain why you asked that question. I asked this question because I wanted to see if I was the only one in the room that happened to. Or I asked that question to see if anybody in here said that they never had that experience, because most people do. So tell us why you asked the question. Give us more information. Now B, this is the benefit part. All of us want to pass our classes and have a stellar grade point average, and knowing how to study is one way to achieve that goal. This pretty much works because, you know, we're connecting by saying we all want to pass classes. Absolutely. We all want to have a good GPA. Sure. So then if you know how to study, that's one way to achieve that goal. Okay, then yeah, tell me more. That gives you what you could possibly learn from this. Okay, you could add here, if you stick with me throughout this, you know, this speech or throughout this journey, you're going to learn a few things about how to study. You could let people know that too, what they're going to actually gain. C says, I have taken a course in how to study, write notes, and pass exams with ease. Over the course of my studies, I have passed all classes and have an undergraduate GPA of 3.97. and a graduate grade point average of 4.0. That way people tell you, I mean, they're telling you why you should listen to them. They've taken a course in it, they passed all of their classes, they have a high GPA. You know, what more do you need to listen to what I have to tell you about how to study? And then D. Today, we're going to explore what it takes to study and do well in school, namely having a quiet place to study, taking good notes, and being disciplined. Do you see how this sentence here is bigger, broader than good study skills require quiet, notes, and discipline? Here in the central idea, you want it to be nice and contained, if you will. But down here, when you're talking in your speech, it's okay to elaborate. Okay, now my transition, and please notice that I put the transition in parentheses and I italicized it. This helps my brain, when I see it, know that there's a change coming. There's something different about this. Many times when you do that, your voice will change because you realize there's something else is going on. First, let's take a look at how having a quiet environment can increase your study skills. Then we go into our body. A, having a quiet place to study can increase your knowledge and exam performance by more than 30%. That's my statement. Now I have to back it up. According to a study done at the University of Arizona in 2012, Dr. Levinson, a tenured psychology professor, he discovered, and I quote, Students who studied in a quiet place versus loud environment retained information better. And then I have the inline text or in-text citation. Notice here that I say who it is. I even gave the year. Sometimes that's important, other times not so much. But if you want to let people know that the information is recent versus not, then you might want to share that. You say that he's a psychology professor, so he probably knows something about this. And then you quote what that person said. Then I give a little story here, something some of you may like to have a little noise. I do. I listen to music when I study. However, heavy metal or rock and roll do not work for me. I can, however, listen to Mozart and Bach all day. Consider something here that I don't know that it's controversial, but some people have different opinions about this. Here's mine. It is okay to use or to have an opinion when you're giving an informative speech. It's not just all fact. While it's fact-based and mostly fact, I can still insert my opinion. I can insert my experience and what I thought about that experience. That's fine. Just back it up with something. So it is okay to share your opinion, okay? The next transition says, we've talked about studying in a quiet place. Now let's take a look at what having good notes can do for you. So I stopped there because it's just a repetition. B and C would be a repetition. We go to the conclusion. We've explored how studying in a quiet place, taking good notes, and being disciplined can help your grades. That's just a repeat of the central idea. So you heard it in the introduction, in each main point, and now a third time. We can all do well with good study habits, as one of my favorite quotes suggests, seize the day. And that would be how I would leave them. I'm not telling them that they should study. That would be persuasion. I'm not telling them they should have to get to a quiet place. That's persuasion. I'm just suggesting here that we can all do well. And then I left out with a quote. Questions about this outline? No? Good.
Are you gonna post that on Canvas for us to reference off?
There will be, I won't put this one up, but there'll be another one that, because this one I use to have you guys answer questions to make it better. I don't want you looking at that one thinking that that's the one that is the right one. There will be a different one that's up there. And since you asked, the one that's going up there will be quite long. And that is because that person that did the long one, they had much more time than you guys are going to have to speak. So their outline is very long. So don't feel overwhelmed when you see like, dang, how long is this thing? And they have so many different points. The nice thing about looking at their outline though, is you can see how easy it is to edit it. You can, maybe they're going to give the speech and they have 10 minutes to give the speech. And when they practice with it, it's 13. Now they can go back in very easily and take out information without losing the body of it or the main points of the speech. Right. All right. So yes, there will be, for the assignment, you will get everything you need. You will get the blank outline so that you can use it as a template. You will get the grade criteria, which tells you what you need to do and when. The
rubric, like a rubric?
Correct. The grade criteria for it. You will see a, we're going to talk about other things before you have to do the speech. We're going to talk about visual aids. You all will do a PowerPoint because that'll be easy to see for everybody. Anybody in here not do a PowerPoint before? Perfecto. Good. We will do PowerPoint. And we'll talk about note cards so that you guys will have everything you need to give this speech, which will be cool. Any other questions about this? I don't know offhand. I don't remember offhand how long you get to speak for this one. I think it's 4 to 6 minutes or so. 4 minutes max minimum and 6 minutes max, I think, is what you get. So when you're practicing with it, make sure you fall within that range. If you do not know yet how to use Loom, L-O-O-M, I am going to implore you to take a look at it. Going to implore you to take a look at Loom. It is a recording device that you can use, and then when you do, your PowerPoint can be right there on the side of you and your little picture at the bottom or the top, wherever you put your picture. So we can see you speaking and then your PowerPoint too. Loom is one. There's another one that's called Screencast-O-Matic. These are both free that you, just a minute, Sean, that you can utilize as well for that. Otherwise, we will give them live here, and then you will share your screen and show your PowerPoint while you do it. Yes, Sean.
So wait, are we not doing these live? Because I mean, you could just give us control, share the screen, and we could put on the video if you want.
That's what I just said. That's what I just said. That yes, otherwise you may show your screen. The thing about the doing it through Zoom, we don't really get a chance to see you while you're presenting. If I share your screen, we see your screen. I really want to be able to see you more in there. Yes.
You can do that, by the way. We did it yesterday.
Oh, you're talking about sharing your screen so that you see the speaker and the screen side by side. Well, if we can get everybody to do that, that'd be great. So yes, that is one of them that we should be able to do. Some people liked to use Loom. It seemed easy for them and they were able to see, but yes, live is absolutely a great idea. Other questions about it? Okay, so we're going to be picking those topics. That should be great. Okay, well, I'm trying to think now, do I want to, I think I will talk to you now about note cards. Give me just a moment here. Note cards are something that you guys will use as well. Let me find it. Okay, this one, this I will put up there for you all to watch as well. This was done by students, by the way, to teach you how to do a visual aided note cards. Let me give you a caveat and say that the way that this PowerPoint is done is not the correct way to do it, mostly because it has too much information on each of the screens. I allowed it because students who are in online classes that do not meet like we do, that are just online with really no instructor, but just information, need to be able to see and read through things. So that's why this looks like it does. But everything else that you get from this, please kind of follow. All right, am I recording this?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so what is a visual aid? It's an artifact. This is too much information on here, but we're gonna go through it this way. It's an artifact that helps to do these things. It illustrates, complements, supplements, and simplifies things. That's what it's for. It's an artifact, it is a thing, it is something, a thing. It could be a lot of different things. PowerPoint is just one of the things that it could be, but it helps to illustrate. Let's see, does this go into it? Okay, I'll use the way that they have. The different types, and there's so many different types of visual aids here. And they just give you a list of things that you could use. The important thing about a visual aid is it needs to be seen by people all the way in the back of the room. Seeing, if you have a handout or if you have a drawing or a chart or something and only the people in the first 3 rows can see it, you're going to lose people from the 4th row back. they're going to become disinterested and start playing on their telephones or doing something else because you've lost them. They're not engaged anymore. So it needs to be something that can be seen from the front of the room to the back of the room, that everybody can take advantage of seeing. Okay. So what does it do? Illustrates. To illustrate means to show. If I say that something is very tall, I can give an example of what really tall looks like next to something that's not so tall, if you will. So it shows me something, illustrate. Simplifies means to make it easier for me to understand. So perhaps I need, if I start talking about a lot of different statistics, maybe I put a chart together that makes it easier for us to understand. This statistic goes here, this one there, and it's all part of the same pie, but this is what it does. Supplement, if you supplement something, it means to add. You're adding something. So I might say, well, you're just adding information to it, and it gives you more of what you're talking about so that people can understand it, I suppose. And then to complement the speech, when you're complimenting something, here it means to go along with. So if I talk to you about the best way to love people is to give them a smile and to hug them, maybe my PowerPoint has, shows you a picture of people smiling, of people hugging. Okay, it complements, it goes along with it. Questions about any of those? So we're going to talk about effective PowerPoint presentations. There are different templates that you can use, and you want to make sure that you find the correct one. I had someone do a PowerPoint the other day in something, and the one that they chose covered up part of their text. That's no good because you can't see what they've written. So make sure that the screen is clear enough, or whatever design you choose is clear enough for us to be able to see. Be careful of using too bright colors or too neon colors that can be, hurt people's eyes. They talk about sans serif. I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is one of the research rules, if you will, that comes up. Sans means without, and sans serif means without decorative lines. If you look on the right-hand side, the T's and the Y's and the P's, they all have a little, curly Q or something happening at the bottom. That's serif. They suggest that you use a sans serif without that because it can be tough on people's eyes, especially people with astigmatism. So you want to use a plain font. Did they mention which ones you could use? No. Tahoma is one, Arial is another. They look awfully plain. I don't mind using something that has a little serif to it as long as you can read it. But the rules actually do say, the research says that you should do one without. Effective PowerPoints, they also use efficient text, minimum word size, minimum words with maximum size. You want to make sure that you capitalize each word at the very beginning correctly, and only use keywords. You're not using full sentences. When do they go into this? Okay. I'll just tell you here. Take a look at this slide, for instance. You see this here is, up top here is the title. Your titles should be a minimum of 44 font. Your title should be 44, and any of your text should be a minimum of 32. 44 for the title, 32 for the text. This one is really done quite correctly. You have a title. Well, no, you have 5. You should only have a maximum of 4 bullet points. Maximum of 4 bullet points. We'll get there. You should also use an image on your PowerPoints. On each of your slides, I want a picture. Find something that does not have a watermark behind it. There's plenty of them on Google someplace. And make sure that you use a photograph, not a cartoon. If, however, you are talking about Marvel Comics or anime or something that is cartoon based, then yeah, it makes sense to use a cartoon. Otherwise, it looks too amateurish, I think is the word that the book may use, and it just looks a little cheesy. Find a nice photograph. I will say for the record, the photographs you see in this particular slide are not large enough. It should be a whole lot larger, and probably one of those pictures should be there and just nice and big for you to see along with the rest of the information. So it says choose your image wisely, and it should go along with your point, what you're talking about. It talks about balanced slides. You want to make sure that there's no dead space, a lot of dead space on your slide, and that things just fit nicely so that it looks good. Okay. Here are some of my rules, and these are important for you to know. There are rules and there are suggestions. These are rules. No white font. No white font. No white font. No, 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 no. It is really tough on people with astigmatism. Sometimes if you choose one of the blue backgrounds, white will come up automatically. I will deduct points if you use white. It's tough on people's eyes. There are other colors you can use, so no white font. Another rule is no pronouns. And you take out all the he, she's, it's, all of that. You don't need that for your words. As a matter of fact, for each bullet point, you should have, the word count should be between 4 and 6. Between 4 and 6. And for your entire slide, you should have no more than 25 words. This is all research. This is all, it should be in your book. It's all part of public speaking. You shouldn't have, sometimes, and we've heard of death by PowerPoint, where people are just reading the PowerPoint. Well, I can read. I don't need you to read it to me. You're supposed to be presenting the information. Okay, an appropriate image on each slide. You'll want to make sure that none are too large or too small, that you can't see them or out of focus. Also, when you're doing your PowerPoint slides, please don't have it swirling in and twirling out and all of that. If you want it to fade or to slide in or something like that, that's fine, but the rest of it is just too much. It's just very distracting, actually. I mentioned the 44 and the 32 there, that is. Here you go, no more than 25 words to a slide. We've seen PowerPoints where people have all of this and they're reading and it's like, no. No, 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 no. No orphan words is another rule. An orphan word, when you think of orphan, it means abandoned, if you will. In this instance, it is when you have a sentence or a paragraph and something goes to the next line, there's one word kind of dangling out there. Get rid of that word. Find a way to edit whatever you have up top and get rid of it. You don't need it. You don't need it. No orphan words. Presenting your PowerPoint slides, you want to focus on the audience, not the slides. When you are in person with people, oftentimes you'll see people looking at the PowerPoint or at the board, wherever the PowerPoint is, and then their back is to the audience. That's not good. Use a remote control or something so that you can see the audience, or have a monitor in front of you so that you can look at what's behind you. Then you don't have to turn around. Okay, you are the big show, not the slides. They're there to help you, to complement, supplement, illustrate, and simplify. That's what it's there for. 3 T's you all should know. These are 3 T's: touch, turn, talk. You touch or you point to your artifact so that people know this is where you want them to look. You turn back to the audience and then you speak. So it's a quick kind of thing. Take a look here at the top right corner, and turn back to the audience and continue to talk. What you will find is blah, blah, blah. All right. Rules for the road, they say here. Keep it simple. You want things to be visible. You want to have your picture. You can use color. Plan ahead so that it seems to work. Okay. I'm going to stop here just a moment and give you more information about PowerPoints. One of the questions people ask us, how many slides do you need? You need as many as you need. But is there a minimum? Absolutely. For informative speaking, for me, there is a minimum of 6. You want a minimum of 6. A cover slide for your introduction, 1 for each main point, and 1 for your conclusion. Cover slide, introduction, each main point, conclusion. I keep saying conclusion, so I need to tell you guys this right here, right now. Make a note someplace in bold somewhere. Do not say in conclusion in your speeches. Do not say in conclusion. Casey, I'm sure they taught you guys that as well. You don't say in conclusion. Why not, somebody?
Isn't it kind of like just when you say you don't use a word to defy a word, in a sense?
Well,
And it just be like telling them, like, this is my conclusion.
well, it's a little different than that in as much as it's a psychological thing. When you say in conclusion, people think you're done and they start to shut down. They start to shut down psychologically. Oh, they're finished. If I start telling you right about now that I want to tell you what the homework is, people start putting stuff in their backpacks, getting ready to go because they think I'm done. Which is one of the reasons, did you hear me earlier on when I gave you an assignment early during the class? That's one of the reasons I do it. You know, class isn't over, so you don't have time to start thinking, oh, we're going to get out early? Wow, she's done. No, mentally you check out. Lots of ways that you can let people know that you are getting done. The last thing I'd like to leave you with, or as I close, you know, if we've all been in church or someplace where people, you know, this is the last point I'm going to say, and in conclusion, this is the last, and then they're still talking 20 minutes later, you're like, really? I just made reservations for dinner, and you still talking? This is the last thing I'm going to say. I'm going to conclude right now. Okay, do it. So be mindful of that. No in conclusions. The other thing to be mindful of, and I probably should make this a rule someplace. I'm telling you now, so you're responsible for this. In your titles, please do not have introduction, main point, conclude. Those are title slides. It would be whatever you're talking about. Maybe it's your main point, building self-esteem, and everything under self-esteem, but building it, each of those titles, each of those slides may have that title. Busting self-esteem might be my next title because that's my next main point. Okay, but not introduction. No. Everybody understand that? All right, I know I'm giving you guys a lot of information tonight, but you might as well get through it and you can ask any questions if you have them. Okay. While we have the time, I'm going to talk to you about note cards. Note cards. Let me share this screen again. We're going to talk about writing note cards. I said to you earlier, and you'll want to remember that I said it, your outline is your what? What did I tell you your outline is?
Blueprint.
Thank you, ma'am. Your blueprint. Your note cards are your guide. Think of a blueprint having every piece in it. It tells you where all the wiring goes, where the outlets are, all of this. Your guide is just like a tour of the house when the house is done. You don't know where all the back wiring and everything else is. You are going to take your outline, sit down with it, take note cards, and then write from your outline to your note cards, practice with your note cards, and present with note cards. That's what you will do. Okay, they're your guide. And you guys will get them done before class because I'll make them do ahead of time. So then that way you'll be practicing with them. Many times when I'm teaching public speaking and students know that they're getting a grade for their note cards, they'll write their note cards sitting there in class just before class. Like they haven't practiced with that, and it just so takes away from the speech. You'll want to practice with your note cards, you all. So you use them to help you remember what you want to say as you're presenting your speech. Here are several rules for note cards. Going to give you some rules and some suggestions. One of the rules is number them. Number them. If you drop your cards, you can easily put them in order. And trust, at some point you will. And there may be times when you have so many note cards. And if you don't want to have to look at them to try to remember what you said next to figure it out, that's too much of a puzzle. Pick them up and put them in order by the numbers. Well, what happens if you want to add a number, if you want to change some things? Maybe I have 1, 2, 3, 4 for my cards. Then maybe I want to add something in number 3, add an additional card. So maybe I would just put, well, I have card 1, 2, 3, and it'd be 3A, 3B, 3C. Those will go right behind 3. And then I pick up with 4. Okay, it makes it easy for you. Then you want to skip a line. You skip a line in between so that when you're looking down and looking back up, it's easier for you to find your place. You skip a line. Okay, just skip a line. Makes it so much easier. One thought to a card. Just one thought to a card. So in my introduction, maybe it's just my A that's on one card, and then my B is on another card. It's just one thought. It keeps it's so much easier for you to look at it that way, and you'll know that you're moving forward too as you're changing your note cards. You're going to use words or phrases, not sentences, to prompt you to say what you want to say. Words or phrases, not sentences. You want to write your name on a few of them somewhere, on the back or someplace. If you ever drop them, leave them in the lavatory, leave them in the library or something. Somebody can find them and turn them into security, and then you won't have to start all over. And it could happen. It could happen. So have your name on a few of them, on the back of them, so somebody, if they find them, then they can turn them in. Use 3x5 white index cards. These are just a regular size. Is this a rule? I'm going to say it's a very strong suggestion. I don't know people's story. You may have an eye, impairment or something, and you need to write really large to see. And so you want to use the 4x6 cards. If that's you, do you. I get it. But just know that it can be distracting to people and it can pull focus. I do say use white index cards because it's easier for you to look at and it's not very distracting. It is not a rule, just a suggestion. Some people like to use color. They may use yellow for each of their transitions and a different color for the introduction, a different color for a main point. If that's you, okay, just know that it can pull focus and it can be distracting. I remember that in a public speaking class, I'm grading speeches while people are giving them live in class. And a gal, one of my favorite colors is the family of purple. And she had the most beautiful lavender note cards. Now, mind you, she's giving her speech. I'm back there grading her. I stop, look for some paper, make myself a note that says, ask her where did she get those lavender cards from? They were so pretty, I wanted some. And we were recording the speeches so we could upload them and people could watch them. They could see themselves and do their evaluation. And I was glad because I went back and I watched that 20, 30 seconds to make sure I didn't miss anything in terms of grading her. But that's how distracted I was. I'm like, oh, I want those. I was looking for some paper to write down, when to ask her. So just think about that. But if you really like color and you want to do it, knock yourself out. Write what you need to keep your presentation flowing. If you need to write a note to yourself, to smile, to breathe, this one definitely needs to be a rule. It's not a rule, but it should be. And that is, none of these right here are rules. These are suggestions. Next slide, change slide, so that you don't forget. If you get up there and you're anxious or nervous or something, you may go the whole time and your PowerPoint sitting up there on the cover slide. Nobody wants to stop you to tell you, because that could make you even more nervous. But if you put in there change slide or next slide, you know to do it. Just use a card and write it. It's pretty easy. If you need to remind yourself to smile, I had a guy who would write things like that. Dude, you're awesome. You're halfway done. He'd get to the end. He's like, dude, you were great. Go have a beer. He would write things to himself to make him, you know, feel better. You're halfway done or whatever that is. Watch your pacing. Whatever you need to remind yourself of, that's an opportunity to put it in there. So these show effective note cards, you know, the numbering them, all of this stuff here, skipping the line, all of that. Some will have too much text on. Look at that. I've seen note cards look just like that. That's hard to read for anybody. And then that's what you end up doing, reading it, and you're looking at it and your head is down. You don't want that. Use as many note cards as you need. Doesn't matter. You can use as many note cards as you need. Okay. Questions? Make sense? Got a couple thumbs up. Okay. What you'll need to know about this assignment is there will be multiple due dates. Multiple due dates. Please open up the assignment and read it. Because if you look at it and it has a later due date at when it's going to be closed, then you'll be like, well, I thought that's when it was due. I'm telling you now, there are multiple due dates. You are responsible for those due dates. It will be in the assignment. For instance, there will be a draft outline. I'll tell you now, draft outline, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but you should. If you do it, it'll be considered extra credit that you'll get for it. I will have a separate little column for you to upload it there. There will be a separate place for you to upload your note cards, upload your PowerPoints, because I will grade those ahead of time, and then I will grade your speech when you give it. So those things will go in different places, and then your final outline will go in the outline assignment. So I do not want you to be confused and think, well, it said it was due by the 27th, and this, now you're saying this was the 24th. Open up the assignment and read it once the assignment goes up. I can't be any clearer than that. Questions? Comments? How many of you are looking forward to giving a speech?
Wait, the speech isn't next week though, is it?
No.
All right, cool. We preparing for it?
Correct.
All right, cool.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to let you guys scoot. I am going to end up putting that information up there for you guys so that you can get started on it. Please read the assignment, follow the directions, and all should be well. All right. Any questions for me about anything? All right. See you guys next time.